Well, greetings and salutations, everybody. Welcome to my YouTube channel. My name is John Campea, and this is a special, wide open spoiler review discussion of Zack Snyder's Justice League. So just in case that title wasn't clear, we are going to, in a very open, spoiler-filled way, talk about Zack Snyder's Justice League. So if you have not seen it, or if you're worried about it, by the way, it's basically the same film. But if you have not seen it yet or anything like that, you might want to go away, come back after you have had a chance to see the movie, and then participate in watching the video at that time. But we're going to go into all the things about the movie, and we're going to spend most of the time hearing from you guys about what your thoughts, opinions, and any questions you have about this iteration of Justice League. By the way, guys, these special open spoiler discussion videos are a little bit different. Instead of using the tip link in the description below, what you use is the super chat feature in YouTube. That way we are able to keep the questions sent in for the John Campea Show and the question for the spoiler discussions completely separate from each other. And there are already a lot of questions that got sent in. So let me dive right into it. I've been waiting for days now. I've been waiting for days to talk to you guys about this. So here's my journey, and I'll keep this relatively short. So my general thoughts of Zack Snyder's Justice League is this. It's quite good. And it is, in fact, better than the theatrical version. I have it right now. This might change a little bit, but as of right now, I have it listed as my number 4 DCEU film. I have it just ahead of Aquaman. And you guys know I like Aquaman. So I've got Aquaman listed as my number 5 film. And then I've got Zack Snyder's Justice League at number 4. I've got Wonder Woman, not Wonder Woman 84. I've got Wonder Woman as my number 3 film. Shazam is my number 2 film. And of course, one of the all-time great comic book movies of all time, Man of Steel, I have as my number 1 film. So I liked it quite a bit. I do have it ahead of the theatrical version. And I liked the theatrical version of Justice League. It got higher audience and critic scores than Batman versus Superman did. And I like Batman versus Superman quite a bit as well. But I think this was a better film. It was quite enjoyable. And here's my basic thing. The main difference between, principle-wise, the main difference between the theatrical version and the Zack Snyder HBO version was the runtime. That's the main thing. And the runtime did 2 things. All right. And the runtime is both the greatest strength of, I think, Zack Snyder's Justice League, and it's also a little bit of its weakness. And here's what I mean by that. The main strength of the extra runtime, and this is the part that makes this HBO version of Justice League a better film than the theatrical version, in my opinion, are these 2 factors that came from the longer runtime. Number 1, deeper character development. There was definitely much deeper character. I don't even know that I'd say character development so much as character exposition. We got to know these characters better, right? We got to know them much better. In the case of Cyborg, there was development. There was a good amount of development, and that was the one character that had the biggest change, because he went from being just, one of the supporting characters in the theatrical version to being kind of the centerpiece of the story. Really, Superman it all kind of revolves around Superman, yes, but the emotional heart of the HBO version of Justice League was really Cyborg. And the extra runtime that this thing had, at coming in at 4 hours, the extra runtime this thing had ended up giving them time to really flesh out, no pun intended for Cyborg, to flesh out and give good context for the character, but also some development for the character. And that was key. But that extra ability to have more context and exposition for each one of the characters, I thought was really, really beneficial. It worked in their favor a lot, because we got to know Barry Allen a little bit better. We got to understand Batman's motivation in Justice League a little bit better. We got to understand even Wonder Woman's role in this a little bit better. And so because of all that, because of that extra time that was afforded to it, what Snyder was able to do was to give more character exposition and a little bit of character development in the case of Cyborg that really fleshes the movie out. It really does flesh it out. And that was really good to see. The second benefit that the extra runtime gave the movie was an expanded understanding of the context. We got an expanded understanding of the context. So while honestly, I'm hearing a bunch of people saying, man, Steppenwolf was so much better. Steppenwolf was not any better in this one. He was as flat in this one as he was before. The only difference was that he had spiky armor. But honestly, I found him to be as flat. Like, I understood his motivation a little bit more. He wants Darkseid's forgiveness, but other than that, I found him to still be pretty flat. But other than Steppenwolf, our understanding of the context. For example, one of the things I loved right from the beginning was the notion that it was the death of Superman itself that kind of triggered off the awakening of the mother boxes. I love that because that harkens back to what Lex Luthor was saying at the end of Batman versus Superman. The dinner bell's been rung. The dinner bell's been rung. Ding, dong, whatever sound it was that Lex made. And it gave much fuller, more understanding that. And the way it opened up with Superman letting out a Superman scream and it literally sending waves around the world, it just sets the context of the story better. And you found, that's just an example. That's just one example. I found there was a lot of different places throughout the movie where having more time to develop to a fuller understanding of the context gave us a much better understanding of the scenes that were playing out in front of us. And because we were more identifiable with the characters and we had fuller exposition for the context, it made for a more immersive movie. It just made for a more immersive movie. And those are the key things. Now, there's a couple of other little specific things like moments here and there that make this a better film than the theatrical version. There are moments, but as far as the big overall principles, it was those two things to me. Better character exposition, and in the case of like somebody like Cyborg, actual character development, and then better understanding of the contextual situation with all the scenes that just fleshed it out better. That was great. And it really served the movie. Now, of course, there are a bunch of there are a whole bunch of individual moments that I'm sure we'll talk about, but the best moment in the movie, the best moment of this movie, ladies and gentlemen, was in the final battle when Superman shows up. And you knew, if you know anything about me and you were watching Zack Snyder's Justice League, you would know immediately, oh, this is going to be Campea's favorite scene. And indeed it was. So you've got Steppenwolf sneaking up behind, I think it was a Cyborg he was sneaking up behind. And he goes to swing the sword, the axe at him, and Superman just steps in. And no. The Superman doesn't catch the axe. No. The Superman doesn't block Steppenwolf's arm. No. The Superman doesn't distract Steppenwolf from the attack. No. The Superman stands there and lets the axe just hit him. And he just looks at him like, I'm about to make you my bitch. Like this, the look on Henry Cavill's as the axe falls and he just lets it hit him. He's not even worried about it. He's not even slightly worried about the axe of the mighty Steppenwolf. Ching. And then the line of the movie, dare I say, other than Pa Kent's line, "You are my son," maybe a top 5 line movie in all of the DCEU. I'm not impressed. Steppenwolf, conqueror of worlds, and the Superman shows up. Ting, not impressed. That I just about flipped my gourd when that scene happened. I just about lost my mind when that happened. I'm just like, oh yeah. And then he just proceeds to beat the living shit out of Steppenwolf. And I'm just sitting there soaking it all in. Listen, I get it. Not everybody loves Man of Steel the way I do. I know not everybody appreciated Batman versus Superman. So like, that's fine. I'm not trying to open up debates, but Zack Snyder understands the Superman. Zack Snyder understands the Superman. And you make Superman's struggles and his obstacles not his physical power. You make it the ideologies and the things that he has to deal with understanding his place in the world. And that is something that Zack Snyder always understood. And so Superman does struggle with that stuff in the DCEU. Oh, but when it comes time to throw down, I'm just going to stand there. I'm going to let you give me your best shot, bitch. I'm not impressed. Oh, God. That filled my heart with such joy. Especially after suffering through watching the iteration of Superman that they had on the Supergirl show for so long. It made my heart smile, my friends. It made my heart smile. It really, best moment of the film. By the way, did anybody else notice? I don't know if you guys know the movie Galaxy Quest, but as soon as Darkseid, or as soon as the mother box, the Unity happens and it starts to blow everything apart and the camera cuts outside to Barry, I'm like, oh, they're about to totally do Galaxy Quest. They're about to do Galaxy Quest, everybody. They're about to do and they totally just ripped on Galaxy Quest, which is fine. It worked. It totally worked. I'm not dissing on it. Don't get me pointing out that it was just like the ending of, that's not a bad thing. It totally worked in the context of the movie, but it was totally the end of Galaxy Quest. It was totally the end of Galaxy Quest. Anyway. But let me talk now. Again, I'm trying to get through all the stuff really quick so we can just get to your lives, your questions and comments and your observations and your thoughts. The length of the film I also found, I know I'm reading a bunch of people saying, oh man, the 4 hours. No, the 4 hours was too long. I felt a lot about this cut the way I did about the Batman versus Superman Ultimate Edition. A better installment, but it was overindulgent. I'll give you an example. And this is just an example, the entire Barry Allen applying for a job at the dog walking place and then saving Iris, that entire sequence was not needed in this movie. You pull that sequence out, it changes nothing about our understanding of Barry Allen. It changes nothing about our understanding of the story. It changes nothing about our view of the movie itself. It was completely unnecessary. It was a scene that should have been in a different movie. And I just found myself through the 4-hour runtime thinking to myself a couple of times, this scene doesn't need to be in this movie. Like this scene right here is not necessary. So while I think the movie definitely benefited from the extra runtime, I think a better runtime, honestly, and getting the full impact of what Zack Snyder was trying to do, I think this movie could have been 3 hours and 15, 3 hours and 30, and it would have had all that. It would have had all the impact. It would have had all the oomph, but it could have cut a lot of the bloat. There was still a lot of bloat in the movie. And I enjoyed it more than the theatrical version, but I did find of all that goodness that just adding more and more and more is not necessarily advantageous. So I did find there to be a lot of bloat. There were a lot of scenes that I thought, okay, this doesn't need to be here. This doesn't need to be here. And it could have just given better pace to the movie. But hey, everything's got an advantage and a disadvantage, right? The extra runtime gave it several really, really big advantages that I think made it a better film than the theatrical one. But it also came with some disadvantages there was some unnecessary bloat. I thought they could have easily cut a half hour out of the movie and still had the full impact of it. But yeah, but let me can I just talk for a second? Will you indulge me as I talk for a second though about that Barry Allen scene? There were a couple of really stupid things in that scene. Number one, the fact that it was just completely unnecessary. And by the way, I liked the Barry Allen character in the theatrical version. I like him just as much in this version. I just thought this scene wasn't necessary. So the scene wasn't necessary. The other thing was this. The whole scene is predicated on a professional truck driver dropping his sandwich on the floor and literally being down on his floor for like 30 seconds. No truck driver does that driving through the city. Like, it's not just like they went, oh, okay, and back and oh no. Like if they did that, it's fine. He literally goes, oh man, I dropped my sandwich. and he disappears, and then like 30 seconds pass of the truck going through the street, and then cutting to Iris, and then cutting to some cars, and then going back to the truck again. It's like, I'm sorry, how long is he down there for? It reminded me a little bit of that Fast and Furious movie when they were on the runway at the airport that went on for 45 miles. It kind of reminded me of that. But the other thing that made it hard for me to like the Barry character was that he's never met this Iris version, right? He's never met this Iris character, total stranger. And so he sees the accident happening. He goes out to save her. But in the midst of saving her, while he's in the Speed Force, he just decides to stand there for a minute and go, oh, and starts caressing her face like this total stranger. I'm like, you are fucking creepy as fuck, dude. Like, he's just acting very creepy. I just found that very strange. I found it very strange. But whatever. Like I said, there was just the one scene that I really thought the entire movie could have done without. But I liked the Barry stuff. I liked the extra added humor that Zack Snyder peppered into this one. Do you think she'll date younger guys? Dude, she's 5,000 years old. Everybody's a younger guy. I mean, just they peppered that in, and I thought it was done. Actually, I'll be honest with you. I've heard some people say that they weren't thrilled with the little peppering in of the lightheartedness and some of the humor. I honestly thought he could have put in a little bit more. I thought there were little moments of lightheartedness and humor. I personally thought they worked very well, and well enough that I thought they could have put in a little bit more. I totally thought they could have put in more. But they put it in what it was. Yeah. So anyway, that's kind of my take. I do not think this movie was great. Like Man of Steel is great. But I thought it was quite good. And again, an improvement on the theatrical version. Now, of course, let the whole debate begin. Now that we're putting this entire Snyder Cut circus behind us, the long national nightmare is over. Not that the movie is the nightmare, but the whole circus that led up to it. The debate can begin. Was the 3.5 long year circus all worth it? We'll leave that up to the historians to decide. As far as the movie in and of itself goes, I put it as very solidly number 4 on the DCEU list. I thought it was an improvement over the theatrical version. I thought Zack Snyder made very effective use of the extra runtime by giving us more character depth and more contextual understanding, which added to the richness of the story, at the price tag of maybe having a little bit too much bloat in the film that really should have been cut out. I feel like, honestly, guys, a 3.5 hour Zack Snyder Justice League cut would have sung. Like, just absolutely sung. But whatever. It was really good. It was enjoyable. I think a lot of people are liking it. It is, as of this moment, the highest critically rated Zack Snyder DCEU movie. So let me I just want to look it up what it is at this moment. The last time I checked, I think it was 79%. It is, well, okay, it's gone down a little tiny bit. It's gone down to what's it down now to? I think 77%. So this is the highest rated, critically rated version or DC movie that Zack Snyder has done. So I think he's got to look at this as a win. I think this is a win. All right. Anyway, guys, now I'm sure there's a bunch of other stuff that will come up that I really liked and a bunch of other stuff that I really didn't like. But let's get over to what you guys have to say about this, shall we? Let's spend the rest of our time taking your guys' thoughts here. All right. So Daniel Weissy writes, I'm just glad they didn't reveal that the Flash's real name was Barry Bonner. No, but they did give us like face caressing totally without permission, but that was fine too. All right. Ross Pitt Shark Hunter writes, I'll be honest, and this is a hill I will die on. I preferred the opening credits for the Whedon version. And you know what, Russ? I agree with you. Now, let me balance that out a little bit. I thought the opening to the theatrical version of Justice League, with the song Everybody Knows playing, and you see the world in disarray after the loss of the Superman, I really did like that opening quite a bit. But at the same time, the whole setting the context of the death of the Superman being what wakes up the mother box was actually very narratively purposeful, and it worked really well. So I think they both worked. I think they were both really quite good openings, but I will also give a little bit of the edge to the theatrical version. Even though this version is better than the theatrical version, I will give the edge to the theatrical version in that one thing, because I thought that opening thing really did set the tone of what the state the world was in at the time. So I kind of like that. So I'll agree with you on that one, Ross. All right, next up. Norwegian Kryptonian writes, please, Warner Brothers, give Zack Snyder a Wonder Woman movie. Yeah, no. The reason I grimace is because I don't think Zack Snyder, even if he was still doing DC movies, which he says he is not, I don't think he'd want to step backwards from doing full Justice League to going back and just doing one of the characters' movies. Not to mention Patty Jenkins, Wonder Woman 84 notwithstanding, Wonder Woman 84 was a disappointment. There's no way around it. But when you look at what she was able to do with that first Wonder Woman movie, it was incredible. It was the first DCEU movie that was truly successful. It made tons of money. It was critically beloved. It was audience beloved. It was the first DCEU film that was truly successful on all three levels. And so I think they've got a really good one in Patty Jenkins there. Plus, I don't think it's something that Zack Snyder would be interested in doing anyway, stepping back from doing the full Justice League just to do an individual character. But that's just my opinion. All right, next up. Josh Bing writes, poor Steppenwolf. All he wanted to do was redeem himself and return home. I like how he actually had a story arc and development this time. His design too, he looked sordid and yelled like a dinosaur. He looked snorted. Yeah, I'll tell you this. While the CGI, and this may be unpopular, and that's fine, while the CGI on this Steppenwolf was definitely better than the CGI in the theatrical version, I actually preferred the overall design. I mean, it was better executed. The CGI was better in this version. It was. But I think I wasn't a big fan of the spiky Steppenwolf. It didn't, from a design point of view, it didn't work as well for me. I wish they had the design of the theatrical version with the much, 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 much better executed CGI of the HBO version. So I wish they could have mashed those two together, but whatever, it still worked. All right, next up. Unbeatable writes, release the Whedon cut. Wait, never mind. Already snoozed it. Saw it. Don't laugh. I've already saw online today, because, Whedon's version was definitely amalgamation of his and Snyder's work. What this puts to rest is there was so much narrative going around that this Zack Snyder version is going to be 95% different than the theatrical version. And no, it wasn't. I remember I got through the first hour and I'm like, this is, with a few minor differences here and there, this is the same movie. It's the exact same movie for the first hour, right? But I've seen some places online actually calling for a Whedon cut of but a fully Whedon film, not an amalgamation of Whedon and Zack Snyder stuff. It's like, please, let's not do that. Can we not do that again, please? Let's just let that go. I think it's time to just let that go. Anyway, Josh Bing writes in again, this film delivered on what I wanted Justice League to be. The score was excellent. That opening, brilliant. Again, with the Superman dying thing. Yeah. Sat straight through the whole 4 hours. I never felt the runtime. I loved every second. That's great. I did not love every second. And I did feel the runtime. Then again, I also feel the runtime on the 4.5 hour cut of the Lord of the Rings movie. So I felt the runtime in this one as well. Again, I thought it was a little overbloated. There was a number of scenes that could have been taken out. But they took the story of the theatrical version, which was Zack's story, and they just gave it more character exposition, more character development, better background on the story and the narrative, giving us a bit. We all knew we were only going to get a couple of minutes of Darkseid, but still, just using Darkseid, even for just a couple of minutes, it gave you a deeper understanding to the narrative that was going on. And he used that to full effect, and it made it, for frankly, a better overall experience as a movie than the 2 hour version was. At least I think so. All right, James Hoffman writes, love the opening scene on Themyscira. I will bathe in your fear. Show him our fear. Reply in unison. We have no fear. That scene gave me chills. Yeah, it was good. There was a number of points throughout the movie where they were the same scenes, but there would be little differences that elevated the scenes a little bit more. Like that scene on Themyscira. That was in the original theatrical version. But just adding in those 3 lines. I will bathe in your fear. Show them your fear. We have no fear. Just those 3 lines elevated that moment. So it was the same scene, but it elevated the moment. And there's lots of points in the movie like that where it's like, it's the exact same scene, but just sometimes small little differences, sometimes a little bit more significant differences were just enough to truly take the scene and just elevate it a few notches. You know what I mean? And it just made it more immersive and a little bit more engaging. More engaging. Anyway, that's just my perception of it. Next up, I loved everything on Themyscira. I loved everything on Themyscira in Wonder Woman. I loved everything in Themyscira in the theatrical version of Justice League. I loved everything on Themyscira in this version of Justice League. All right. Suthius writes, damn, I think Snyder did great with this. Characters had more time to breathe. That's the best way to put it. The characters and the story had more time to breathe. That's a perfect way to put it. And be fleshed out, especially Victor, loved it. Maybe my favorite DCEU. Yeah, it's far from my favorite DCEU, but yeah, especially Victor. Especially Victor. And you know what scene? Here's my favorite scene involving Victor. And there were a number of very good ones. But my favorite scene involving Cyborg, because it did a lot narratively, was that moment where he decides to hone in. I mean, he becomes a bit of a creeper stalker, but still it was for a good reason. He picks out this waitress and he starts going through all the digital profiling of this waitress. And he sees her with her child celebrating a birthday, and he sees her at work working hard for barely any tips, and he sees her struggling for money, and he sees her getting evicted from her thing. And what does he do? Well, he robs the bank, but still, let's put it aside for a second that he's robbing the bank. He puts money into her account and makes her life better. And didn't you just feel when she looks at the bank, when you understood, the movie just showed us very quickly the state that woman's life was in. And when she sees there's $100,000 in your bank account, doesn't your heart smile when you see the joy and relief on her face and what that means for her and her child and all that kind of stuff? And the reason, and you may think, well, John, like if the Ezra scene was unnecessary, why wasn't this one unnecessary? I thought this scene was completely necessary, not because we needed to know anything about this waitress. It's the entire sequence speaks to the heart of Cyborg. It speaks to his heart. It speaks to his character. Because in the absence of that scene, Cyborg is just a bitter, salty asshole. But with that scene, we as the audience see that he gained nothing from helping that woman. He didn't benefit from helping that woman. The combination of that scene with the waitress, along with his flashback scene of being in trouble at school when he was trying to help the other girl get better grades, it speaks to the heart and the very core of the character of who Cyborg is. And it is those two scenes that then give us context for everything else we see Cyborg doing, right? Because in the absence of that, he just comes across as a cold, kind of self-centered, oh, poor me, boo-hoo kind of character. But with those scenes, we see the real depth to his character and what's there. And that's why, like, the Barry Allen scene was completely unnecessary, but I think this one was completely necessary and completely effective. And I think the finest moment involving Cyborg in the entire movie. And it's one that I think a lot of people will just overlook. That's, the scene when he helped the waitress. To me, it's the most pivotal, narratively, character-wise, important scene in the movie for Cyborg. And I thought it was beautiful, made my heart smile. And it just made me empathize with Cyborg much more as a human being throughout the rest of the movie. So anyway, that's what it did for me. Anyway, next up. Suthius also writes, if only Steppenwolf was a combination of the theatrical designs with this version's character. Wasn't I just saying this? I did like that he was vulnerable without his metal suit. I was just kind of basically saying the same thing. I kind of wish he had the design of the original with the much, much, much better executed CGI of the theatrical, I thought that would have been the best one, but whatever. He served his purpose. He wasn't even the main bad guy, so there you go. Suthius also writes, I didn't expect to see them fail. To see that the characters were literally disintegrated by the Unity in reverse was an eye-opener. Barry was great. Hey, listen, I loved Barry's character. I love Flash in the original theatrical version. I love him here. As a matter of fact, there are two lines of dialogue. There are two lines of dialogue that were in the original film that were not in this film. And there's a number of things from the original that aren't in this one that I don't miss at all. But two lines in particular that were in the original that were not in this one that I really did miss. And one of them involves the Flash. One of my favorite lines of Justice League was when they were underwater in Gotham, at least under the Gotham Harbor. And they're there to rescue, the scientists and Cyborg's dad and all that kind of stuff. As they're about to go into battle, and I can't remember word for word, but like Flash has this real, like, honest moment with Batman. It's like, listen, it's a character moment. It spoke to the character of Flash. He's like, I've never done battle. Like, I push people and then run away. Like, I've never been in battle. And then Batman turns to him and says, save one person. Just do that. Just save one person. And I thought that moment in the movie was just like the waitress scene with Victor. It really spoke to the character and who the character was and why it was so important. I feel like that interaction between Batman and Flash was really pivotal to Flash and really inspiring moment when Batman says, just save one. And so he does. He goes, okay, I save one. And then he realizes, I can do this. And he saves more, right? I missed that in this movie. I did. I missed it. Now, I get it. I understand because Zack Snyder made a commitment. I'm not going to use anything in this movie that I didn't shoot myself. And so clearly he didn't shoot those lines. So I understand why he didn't do it. But I thought the movie would have been better for it had he kept that line. I just thought that line was really good. That's all. So that's one of the few things that I actually missed from the original theatrical version myself. All right. Next up. Where are we at here? We are at Gabe Campbell writes, I absolutely loved it. I have a love-hate relationship with Batman versus Superman, but Man of Steel is a masterpiece. This is almost as good as Man of Steel. Yeah, I mean, I don't have a love-hate relationship with Batman versus Superman. I really like Batman versus Superman. I think it's quite good. I even have an entire video on defending the Martha scene. Yes, I defend the Martha scene. I think it was misunderstood by most people, but that notwithstanding, we won't go into that whole debate right now. But yeah, I thought this was better than Batman versus Superman. I thought it was better than the theatrical version. I don't think it's anywhere near as good as Man of Steel. But I do have it and you guys know I really liked Aquaman, and I have it even higher than Aquaman, so I enjoyed it quite a bit. Anyway, I'm glad you enjoyed it, Gabe. Next up, Entertain Nerd Studios writes, Cyborg was the core of this movie. Emotionally, he was the emotional core of the movie. And my God, the three act of Flash was awesome. And yes, every time I hear the Man of Steel theme, I just feel hope in my heart. Joker and Batfleck conversation speaks darkness. Give me a Batfleck movie. Well, hey, don't even get me going on a Ben Affleck Batman. You guys know that's all I've ever wanted. So we'll move past that. I'll say this though, while it was definitely a cool scene, there's no denying it. That scene at the end of the movie, that's fast forwarding to the future, to one of the possible alternate timeline futures, where it's him, Mara, Deathstroke, Cyborg, and Joker. And they had that conversation. That was a very cool scene. I am still not convinced that scene was needed in the movie. Now, but at the same time, I get it. This was supposed to be Zack Snyder's original vision for this movie. And when he was doing this movie, he had planned to do another one. And so he kept this one true to the original vision, which was to end like that. So I get it. Yeah. I take it back. It makes sense. He committed to doing it the way he was going to originally do it, and that was how he was originally going to do it. So I'll give him that. Although, I should say, the Joker was never part of his original plan. Like, remember we talked about on the show, he gave that interview a while ago. He never did shoot Joker to be a part of that. They were going to do something a little different, but he took advantage of the fact that he had all that time. He decided to put, and you know me, I know y'all don't like Jared Leto's Joker. I do. I mean, he's not my favorite Joker, but I like Jared Leto's Joker, so I was very excited to hear he was going to be in it. And that was a nice little exchange between them, as a matter of fact. All right, next up. Gabe also writes, it was short, but that Batman-Joker conversation was incredible. Yeah, and I think I would find it more incredible if there actually was going to be another movie. Being that it was just kind of a hanging thread, it took away a little bit of the satisfaction I had with it, but I think when I watch it for a second time, I'll probably appreciate it even more, because I was just so wrapped up in the whole thing of, why is this scene even here right now? Like, it's a good scene, but why does it need to be here right now? And I think I was so wrapped up in that in my own head that I wasn't fully just appreciating it just for what it was. And I think if I go back and watch it again, I'll probably appreciate it even more. Anyway, good thought there, Gabe. Next up. Gabe also writes, it's a shame we'll never see Justice League 2 because this sets up so perfectly. After all, the great reception, it's hard to imagine DC/Warner Brothers not have that conversation at least. I don't think they're going to have that conversation. I mean, I don't know that. No insider information from me. Absolutely none. But both Zack Snyder and Walter Hamada, they seem to be moving their DCEU off in their own direction. And I think everybody's moving on from that. But you know, Jamie Foxx is coming back as Electro in the MCU. In that world, brothers and sisters, anything can happen. Anything can happen. All right, next up. The Wakandan Forever writes, It was all right. It's cool to see more comic characters on screen. Ultimately, it was impossible to live up to the hype. John, you say some ideas would make cool YouTube videos. Now I know what you mean. Yeah, and again, I think it was more than all right. Like, I think it was better than Batman versus Superman, which I liked. I think it was better than Aquaman. I think it was better than the Justice League theatrical version. I fall short. You know, Robert and I were talking about it. I told him I just can't consider it great the way I consider Man of Steel great. There's just too much bloat. It's too slow in some places. There are still a number of, let's just call them plot holes for now. But, I mean, overall, I mean, it's a win. It's a solid movie. It's an enjoyable movie. I had a really good time with it. I think most people did. And again, just for me, just that scene near the end with Superman with the whole "I'm not impressed" line, that alone made watching the 4-hour movie worth it to me. And there are many, many, many other enjoyable moments too. Many, many others. But that, if all that was good about this version of the movie was that one moment where he takes the axe in the shoulder and says, "I'm not impressed," totally would have been worth the 4 hours to me. Completely worth it to me. All right, next up. Adam Henson writes, although his appearance was short, I love seeing my favorite DC character, Martian Manhunter, and yes, he's better than Superman. I thought, honestly, the Martian Manhunter stuff was a complete useless waste. It was a complete useless waste. I get it. It's cheap fan pop. Hello, New York. It's cheap fan pop, but he literally did nothing. And I read somebody online write this thing about, okay, so let me get this straight. Martian Manhunter skips out on the events of Batman versus Superman. He doesn't help during the parademon Steppenwolf invasion of Earth, almost destroying the world. He doesn't help in any of that, but when it's all done, he then shows up at Bruce Wayne's place saying, "Hey, I think I'll help out from now on." Really? We really could have used you like 2 days ago, dude. Did you know the world was about to end? Were you aware the world was about to end? And we were getting our asses kicked a lot, and there were these armies of alien creatures, and you just were too busy jerking it to a lingerie magazine? Martian Manhunter? Think you could have helped? Anyway, I just read this big thing about that. Yeah, look, I love Henry Lennox. I particularly love him in a show that I watch called The Blacklist. So I love the actor who plays it. And yeah, it's cool seeing Martian Manhunter, but it was totally unnecessary. And that, again, that last scene where he shows up at Bruce's place, like that's just a great example of, you know, it was bloat. It wasn't needed. It just wasn't needed. And that's not me dissing on the character. It's just that it wasn't a necessary, because I love Flash, but that scene with the Flash, with the dog walking thing in the Iris car accident was completely unnecessary. And I thought the Martian Manhunter stuff was unnecessary. Not bad, but unnecessary to a 4-hour-long movie. Anyway, that was just kind of my take on that. I'm sure many, many people disagree with that, and that's cool. We're here to be film fans together and to have agreements and disagreements. All right, next up. Daniel Weissy writes, in the flashback, when the one guy hit Darkseid in the neck with the axe, all I could think of was he should have gone for the head. Yes. Yes, yeah, because he effed Darkseid up. And it's like, if only he hit it a few more inches over to the side and actually just finished the dude off. You should have gone for the head. Excellent observation, dude. Excellent observation. Let's see. Next up, Levi R. writes, one of two. I loved it. It's good seeing Martian Manhunter. I love the new look of Steppenwolf. And of course, seeing Darkseid just felt like a more complete story. See, I agree with that part. Even though he really doesn't do anything in the movie, just the presence of Darkseid expands our perception of the narrative. And that by itself creates a more compelling movie. Just that by itself. Now, I've heard some people lament, oh, I wish Darkseid was in it more, but I get that because Darkseid's a very cool character, but they didn't even need to do more. Just having him there at all expands the movie so much. And I thought it was a very, very good decision to put him in there. By the way, can I say this for a second? Let me sidetrack here just for a second and throw in a thought about this. After watching Justice League, I was vexed. And here's what I was vexed about. The narrative that has always come out of Warner Brothers, sometimes through official channels, sometimes through not so official channels. But the message that has always come out from Warner Brothers was basically this: that Warner Brothers had seen the first cut of the movie. It was not the direction they wanted the movie to go. They decided to move on. They brought in Joss Whedon, told him, you have to cut this down to 2 hours. You have to change all this stuff, and we're giving you no extra time to do it. We're not moving the release date because Kevin Tsujihara needed to get his annual bonus. So we're not going to give you any more time. We're not going to give an extended release date. Redo this, take it down to 2 hours, and change all this stuff, right? That has always been the narrative coming out of Warner Brothers about that. When I watched this version of the movie, I'm like, time out. This is the same movie. I mean, longer, more character background, more context to the story, all that stuff that makes it better, yes. But in a one-page synopsis, the mother boxes are there. The mother boxes have awoken. Batman's on a mission. He goes here to try to get Aquaman. They go here to try to get the Flash. Diana goes and meets with Cyborg, pulling the team together. They have to go under the Gotham Harbor, save the scientists. They get the final mother box together. They raise Superman from the dead. Superman's a little bit crazy. They have a really cool fight with Superman. Superman takes off with Lois Lane. The rest of the team figures, oh, well, we better go stop Steppenwolf ourselves. They go to Russia to fight Steppenwolf, confront him, to stop him themselves. Superman shows up and helps save the day. At the end of it all, Bruce Wayne buys the bank that was holding the mortgage to Martha Kent's thing and blah, blah, blah. Guess what? That's the theatrical version. That's the HBO version. The reason I was vexed after watching this was, Warner Brothers, you've told us for years that it needed to be changed. I get you wanted the shorter runtime, okay, but that it needed to be changed. It had to do all, you spent $100 million in additional reshoots to essentially make the movie that Zack Snyder was making anyway. Just a shorter version. And I felt very misled by Warner Brothers on that. And I love Warner Brothers. Thank you for that Batman sweatshirt, by the way. I love Warner Brothers. But I felt very misled by Warner Brothers because I'm like, after watching this version and realizing that all the core story beats, this is the same movie, why the hell did you have to bring in another director at all? If the only thing to you was that you just wanted it to be 2 hours, then just get an editor to edit it down to 2 hours. If it was that important to you, just bring in an editor to get it down to 2 hours if you must. But it left me wondering, what the hell was all the drama about? This is the exact same story beats as Zack. You made a different version for the theaters that was the same story beats Zack was doing anyway. Why did you have to bring in another director at all? Just say, Zack, you go and be with your family, and we're going to make the changes in this movie that we want to, and just bring in a good editor and edit it down to 2 hours if you must. And again, this movie is better being longer than 2 hours, but I'm saying, if that was their main thing, I was sitting there on my sofa watching it, because the first time I watched it was on my iPad. I'm sitting there on my sofa watching this on the iPad, and it ended, and I was just like, what the hell was all the drama for? I just, this was such much ado about nothing that they should have just left it as it was and edited it down to 2 hours. If that's what you really wanted to have, it was right at 2 hours, then fine, do that. But why they needed another director, why they had to do $100 million of new reshoots, all that kind of stuff, when all the story beats were completely the same as Zack's edit in the first place. I just don't get it. And to me, it speaks to the years of dysfunction that they had. Now, I think Warner Brothers is in a much better place today. Today, they're under better leadership. They have a more steady ship. But I think that speaks to the true depth of the dysfunction that was going on over there at the time when Kevin Tsujihara was still running things. And I used to be a big fan of Kevin Tsujihara until he started doing like all these really weird things. I'm not even talking about the stuff that got him fired. But anyway, now that you've let me rant about that, let's move on and let's keep going. Sorry about that. I've been sitting on that for like 5 days. I've been sitting on that for like 5 days. So anyway, okay. Purged. Okay, let's move on here. Levi, was that? Oh, no, that was Levi, or 1 of 2. More complete story. Where's part 2 of 2 for Levi? Do you think now that streaming that we'll see longer versions of movies? I don't think so. I feel like it works a little better because you can tell a longer story, but that's not actually what studios are looking for. I mean, listen, studios are even very slow to even put in bonus features to be included with their streaming stuff. I mean, some do, and I love the bonus feature stuff. They want to make as bare minimum as they can. And remember, the shorter the film, the less expensive the film. So I don't think, I mean, who knows what trends and everything will do, but do I think that 4-hour movies are going to become a norm? No. You know what? The same topic came up when Lord of the Rings was coming out, and Lord of the Rings was tipping the 3-hour marks when, for the most part, other movies weren't doing that. And I remember at that time, that brought up this big conversation. Oh, do you think like all movies now will be 3 hours long? And of course they never did. Not really. Like you had the odd one here and there. So I don't think, I don't think it'll lead to longer overall in general movies. I think they like 90 minutes to 2 hours, nice and tight, tell your story properly. If you're a gifted storyteller, you can do that, and it makes it less expensive for them to produce it. So, but I don't know. Who knows which way trends will go? We'll have to wait and see. They change all the time. ZMG Ruler writes, why do you think we live in a society was cut? No idea. No idea. I don't know why anything was cut. I'm sure they have their reasons. Probably didn't really add anything to the story, so that's probably why they took it out. Ladislav writes, Was Lois pregnant? Oh, I mean, that's a good question, because when she opens that drawer and there's the pregnancy test in it, just some Injustice vibes. I'm bummed that we don't get a Leto Affleck Batman movie after that short conversation. Hashtag justice for Batfleck. Well, you guys know me. For years, all I wanted was a Ben Affleck. I just wanted a Ben Affleck Batman movie, man. That's all. I'm a simple man, ladies and gentlemen. I am a simple man. Give me a good bowl of ice cream, my wife by my side, and a Ben Affleck written and directed starring Batman movie. Don't get me wrong. I'm totally looking forward to the Matt Reeves movie. I'm very, very excited about it. But yeah, just give me a good bowl of ice cream, my wife by my side, and a Ben Affleck written, directed, and starring in Batman movie. And I am a totally happy John Campea, ladies and gentlemen. I'm a totally happy John Campea. But was Lois pregnant? At first I thought, she's pregnant, but then she never actually brings it up to Clark. So I'm thinking maybe she wasn't, but I like the fact that they just included that in there. To kind of put that in our mind. I thought it was very clever. So maybe we'll find out one day. Maybe Snyder will say, as a matter of fact, yeah, in my head, writing the story, Lois was pregnant. Maybe we'll find that out. My guess is that she wasn't, but maybe we'll find out someday that she was. All right, next up. Raymond 2000 writes, John, I give up. I thought this movie was a boring, hot-ass mess. Better than the first, but man, it's embarrassing at this point, is it me? No, listen, man, all film's subjective. Look, I get it. You guys know how much I venerate Man of Steel, right? But I get it. There are a lot of people who don't like it. I said when I first saw, I put out on Twitter after I watched this movie, I said, I think everybody who's looking forward to this movie will be happy. But I don't know that a lot of people who are not into Zack Snyder's interpretation of the DCU are going to be won over. Some will, but I don't think there's going to be a lot. So I'm not surprised that you didn't like it. I mean, listen, it's all subjective, right? Everybody loves freaking Blade Runner, and I don't. Right? There's nothing wrong with that. You watched it. It didn't work for you. It is overly long. It is a little too bloated, but it still worked for me, and it still worked for a lot of people, and it didn't work for you. It's not just you. That's just movies, man. That's the art. That's the art. It's subjective. It didn't work for you. It didn't work for you. No worries. All right. Next up. Raymond also writes, though I didn't like the movie, that Deathstroke scene with Lex Luthor made me want that Ben Affleck Batman movie so bad. That, by the way, was another improved scene, right? We should make our own Legion. Okay. Instead, I've got something for you. Batman is Bruce Wayne. And then seeing Joe Manganiello's like that little grin. All right, we do have something to celebrate. It was the same scene. It was just a better version of it, right? Still the same movie, still the same ending, still the same scene. It was just a better version of it, with just a few different lines of dialogue. It elevated the scene, and I thought that was an improvement over the theatrical version as well. Ladislav writes, I'm just happy. I see somebody, Angelo Ortiz is writing, Bruce wishes congratulations to Clark at the end. Yeah, because he's engaged. Remember earlier, as he's standing in the wheat field, he says, I take that as a yes. And she's like, what? You're wearing the ring. So they're engaged. So I don't think he was congratulating him about pregnancy. I think he was congratulating him about being engaged. I might be wrong. Maybe it was about pregnancy, but it seemed like since he brought up, they specifically do that scene. I take that as a yes, you're wearing the ring. So I just interpreted that as them being engaged, but that's just me. All right. Let's see. Where are we at here? Ladislav writes, I'm just happy they fixed the stupid Barry and wussy Batman. Really love the characters Zack created for this iteration, and I think they fit in that world well. I mean, I'll be honest with you. Even in this version of Justice League, I do not like this Batman nearly as much as I like the Batman Zack Snyder gave us in Batman vs. Superman. This was still Batman light. And I certainly didn't like the Batman character nearly as much in the theatrical version. And I find the Batman character to be a little bit better in this version. but still nowhere near what I thought was the best on-screen iteration of Batman ever, which was Ben Affleck's Batman and Batman versus Superman. But that, again, that's just me. I didn't think they completely fixed it from the Justice League version. A little bit better, yes, but I didn't think they totally fixed it. And listen, I really liked Ezra Miller's Flash in the first one. I really did. And I make no apologies for that. I thought he was charming and funny, and had a whimsy about him. And that whole notion, because none of the other ones have this wow factor, right? Like Batman, I do this. Superman knows what he is. Aquaman's just a hard ass. Cyborg is kind of emo until we see the scene with the waitress. Then we understand him. He's got a big heart. But Barry is like the one character in these movies that is just like, he's us. He's like, this is so cool. Like, I love it. I still love this scene. They did it in the theatrical version and they did it in this one. Like when the bat symbol's in the sky, it's like, that's your thing. It's like, that's how we would be reacting. And while Barry's had powers, he's never done the superhero thing, right? And now he's hanging out with Batman and they're resurrecting Superman. And I just found the charm of that worked really well. And I thought I personally thought that carried over well into the movie. I know I'm in the minority on that, so be it. But I thought Barry was a character that worked very well in both versions, but that's just me. All right. Next up, Curtis Lopez writes, one of two. Now, if you really think about it, based on how Silas describes Cyborg's abilities, outside of Supes, he's probably one of the most dangerous out of the Justice League if he ever decided to go bad. I mean, he can launch nuclear warheads by just a wink of an eye. And if he doesn't like you, he can erase your social security number and deplete your bank accounts. Yes, but this was a problem too. Tell me if you guys agree or not, but this was a problem to me. Silas didn't remotely understand the mother box. He understood it could do some wild things, but he didn't really understand that. He said that in the movie. He doesn't really have a grasp on it. He would have no idea what Victor was able to or not do. I mean, and so that struck me as a little bit odd because on the one hand in the movie, he's basically still lamenting the fact that we barely understand this thing at all. I mean, we're just still shooting lasers at it to see what happens. And oh, look, it increases the internal temperature of it. Cool. We didn't know it did that before. The fact that he just had, this full explanation for his son. Here's exactly everything your powers allow you to do. How the hell did he know that? How would he possibly know that? And leave it on a little analog cassette tape for Victor to listen to. I don't know, whatever. But getting back to the point of your observation. Yeah. They set it up that the Cyborg is not someone to be trifled with. He can alter the course of the world financial markets, of war and whatever. Now, he can't take Superman in a fight, but he's a very, very dangerous, if he was bad, a very dangerous individual, capable of doing a lot. And I thought that was pretty overwhelming. I thought that was pretty overwhelming as we're hearing Silas explain everything that he can do. I thought that was done pretty well. All right. Let's see. Next up, we've got Ethan Holgate writes, I know you don't care, John, but Batman saying the F word was awesome. To me, just saying, man, what an experience this movie was. I loved every second. I really love the scene, but I'm sorry. Him saying fuck didn't make the scene any better. It didn't make it any worse. Like the scene had just been him, I'm going to kill you, it would have given me chills. Him saying, I'm going to fucking kill you. It's like, ooh, Batman's so edgy. Ooh, he said fucking. Wow. I don't know. It didn't make it any worse for me. For me personally, it didn't take anything away from it. So for me, it was neither here nor there. But that brings up a very interesting thing. They're saying this movie was rated R. For what? I've seen PG-13 movies with a lot more stuff in it than this. And don't get me wrong, I'm not saying it should have had any more edgier stuff. I'm not saying that at all. I'm just saying, why did it have an R rating? Was it literally because of that one last part where Bruce Wayne says, I'm going to fucking kill you instead of I'm going to kill you? Was that the difference between their PG-13 and their R? I don't know. Left me a little bit confused. I'm not quite sure where it did that because I've seen a lot of PG-13 stuff that does a lot worse. But anyway, that's just me. All right, next up. Curtis Lopez writes, what I love about this cut is that it gave better character arcs. It absolutely did, especially to Cyborg, and Flash. Cyborg actually feels essential this time. And I love the scene where Flash uses his Speed Force. That was a great scene, by the way. That scene where he's using the Speed Force and he's talking about, you're going to have to go faster than light, much faster than light, going to have to break the rule. And I'm like, that's cool. What rule is he talking about? Obviously, this is a lead into Flashpoint, but I love the fact that they didn't feel the need to explain it right then and there. And the whole motion. And by the way, can I just say this too? I know everybody, right from the theatrical version and even until now, everybody makes fun of the way that Ezra Miller as Flash runs. He does the whole, right? And everybody makes fun of it. But I remember you guys might remember this. I had this argument, that wasn't an argument, it was friendly. We were having this debate about it. And he's like, this buddy of mine's like, that's just not how the fastest runners in the world run. I'm like, really? Do tell. How does somebody who runs faster than the speed of sound run? Show me an example of somebody who runs faster than the speed of sound and show me how that. Oh, that's right. Nobody can. Who are we to say how somebody who can literally run faster than the speed of light, how they're supposed to look while running? Maybe if all you want to do is run a little piddly 100-meter dash in 10 seconds, maybe you got to run like this. But maybe if you're going to run the speed of light, you got to do. You know what it reminded me of? It reminds me of Olympic skating. Like he was doing the movements of an Olympic skater. That's what it kind of reminded me of. But whatever. For me, it worked. I don't care. I know a lot of people didn't like it, but I liked the way the Flash ran. I like the way that he runs. Anyway, that's just me. Okay. Next up, Levi R writes, this is fun. All right. Do you think Warner Brothers will let Zack make a Justice League 2 and 3? No, I don't. And just put it on HBO Max, and it would be great to see his vision play out. I don't think so, but that doesn't automatically mean they won't, right? I mean, he said he's not making any more. Warner Brothers has said they're not going to make any more. That's not me. That's what they said. So maybe something changed in the future. But here's the thing. If you're going to make movies that cost $200 million to make, what is your strategy for getting return on your investment? How do you financially justify making those movies with those types of price tags and just dropping them on HBO? I honestly, I don't know that there's a business case to be made for that. Not for these movies. And you got to remember, none of Zack's movies ever cracked $1 billion. Right? I mean, Batman versus Superman. That should have competed for a $2 billion and never broke $1 billion. Man of Steel should have been $1 billion film, but it wasn't. I mean, so if you're Warner Brothers, you got to ask, what is our return on investment? If we're going to invest X number of whatever millions of dollars into these things, what is the investment? Now, I'm seeing some people saying it costs $70 million to do the Snyder Cut. No, it costs $70 million to take all the stuff they had already done and then put together and make the Snyder Cut. But it wasn't just $70 million. You have to also take into account all the money they had spent previously to do that, right? These are expensive movies, and they should be expensive movies. So I just don't know how they make a business case about how they're going to make money off of that. So I don't know. Maybe they find a way to do it. Maybe they do. I just personally right now, from where I'm sitting right now as a spectator, I don't see how you do it, but that doesn't mean they couldn't find a way someday. All right, next up. Isaiah Campbell writes, If Warner Brothers doesn't want to give this movie a sequel, I really hope we could see an animated version of what would have been parts 2 and 3. Also, I'm still not a fan of this jokester and play dumb Flash, maybe just used to the CW versions. I am a fan of this Joker and this Speedster, thank you very much. That's okay, you don't, that's all fine. You know what, I do like your idea though, Isaiah. I mean, if you can't, from a business perspective and from making it to make financial sense, do a live action of parts 2 or whatever, why not do animated? I mean, let's face it, Marvel and DC make their animated movies really cheap. I mean, laughably cheap. So why not? I mean, you don't have to worry about a big return on investment. If you don't do live action, why not do it animated? It's not a huge investment, relatively speaking. So, I mean, I like your idea. Why not put those together? I don't personally see there's drawbacks to trying to do a live action because of the finances. I don't see any drawbacks to doing an animated one. Why not? What's the harm? What's the worst that can happen? So I kind of like your idea with that. All right. Thanks for that, Isaiah. Appreciate that. And by the way, I noticed you tipped in $20. Thanks, man. I appreciate that, dude. Dr. DeFritas writes, can you explain the whole Lois is the key message from Barry that Bruce said must mean something more? Will this be elaborated in the Flash movie? Probably not. It was probably a hanging thread that was going to mean more in Justice League Part 2. I don't think we're going to see Lois or anything in the Flash movie. I mean, maybe we will. I don't know, but I don't think we are. I haven't heard anything about Amy Adams appearing there. My only assumption is just this. Is that it sounds like Lois Lane dies and that breaks Superman, and it breaks Superman bad. It breaks him bad. Breaking Bad. That's the only thing I can think of. And then even in the conversation with Joker, they talk about, you let Lane die. You let Lane die. Yeah, so that's the only thing I can imagine is that Lois dying breaks him, kind of like in Injustice: Gods Among Us. So that's my guess. I don't know for certain, and we may never know now, but that's my guess about what I thought it was going to mean. All right, Arpan writes, I enjoyed the film, but the editing was bad. The editing was a little questionable. I will give you that. The editing at times was a little bit questionable. Manhunter cameo and the long nightmare scene felt a bit unnecessary. I've already said the exact same thing myself. 3-hour length may have served the film best. I think like 3 hours and 20, 3 hours and 30. I really think at 3 hours and 30 minutes, 3 hours and 25 minutes, I think this movie would have benefited from all that extra character and story and would have felt much tighter and just sung. Like an opera singer. I just feel like it would have sung. But whatever, it is what it is. All right, next up. Jason E. Rios writes, I love Zack Snyder's Justice League, but that trucker scene was so dumb. I was just saying the same thing, brother. Like, what train driver spends 5 minutes trying to pick up an object while driving? Now listen, if it was an empty highway at the middle of the night, you might be able to get away with that. But while he's driving in the middle of the day down a city street, it's like, oops, I dropped my sandwich. I'll just put the truck on autopilot. Give me a minute. I'll be back in a few moments. And away he goes. Yeah, that was dumb. That there's no getting around it. That was dumb. We all know it. We all admit it. That was pretty dumb. And fine. So yes, I agree with you on that. I do. All right. Ben Rayner writes, and tips in like $20. Thank you, Ben, who writes in, hey, John, as someone who loves Justice League theatrical and puts it number 2 behind Man of Steel, I really quite enjoyed this. I think I like both versions equally. I wish Superman was in blue suit for the final fight. That's just my opinion. And by the way, yeah, there was no narrative purpose for him being in the black suit. Like everybody gets all excited. Woo, he's wearing black. And hey, I remember when Henry Cavill first put out, do you remember this years ago? It was like 2015 or something, maybe early 2016. Henry Cavill put out a social media post of him wearing the black Superman outfit, which we remember from after the death of Superman when Superman returns. And it was like, oh, that's pretty exciting, but it literally meant nothing. Like if there was at least a line in the movie where you hear Jor-El saying, this is the symbol of when we go to war to fight against injustice. We wear our black ceremonial things. But if there was at least a line, one line somewhere in the movie that gave any relevance to why is Superman wearing the black Superman outfit instead of the red and blue, then it would have felt more natural to me. Instead, it just felt a little bit forced. I didn't care because he beat the shit out of Steppenwolf and said, I'm not impressed. So I didn't care about the color of his costume, to be honest with you. But I did think if you're going to do this thing where it's like, ooh, he's doing this big visual change, just drop one line of dialogue, just one line that gives a narrative purpose to why he is wearing that. Because ultimately the movie gave it didn't address the question of why. Why is he wearing black instead of his traditional, when his traditional suit was right there? Why did he take a pass on that and instead put on this other one? And it didn't take a 5-minute scene. It literally would have taken a 3-second line of dialogue to give it some purpose, but whatever. At the end of the day, it doesn't really matter. It's just the color of the suit, and it got a lot of people excited. A lot of people got excited seeing the black suit. So, I mean, at the end of the day, it's all about the experience that the movie gives us. All right. Marcus is saying in the live chat, his regular suit was at the cleaners. Well, he has been dead for a while. Maybe he left it at Gus's gas station movie reviews and laundromat.fart, and he forgot his ticket. That's it. It was at the cleaners and he totally forgot his ticket. That explains everything. All right. John Redcorn writes, if/when Warner Brothers does another Justice League movie, do you think Affleck and Fisher will reprise their roles? No, I do not. So far, there's only Flash, Aquaman, Wonder Woman, and maybe Superman left in the DCEU. They're going to bring more characters back. Listen, whatever you say, Ray Fisher has painted himself into a corner. I wasn't there, so I don't know why there's drama between him and Walter Hamada. I know Hamada is not making everything public. I know Ray Fisher is, but when you're Ray Fisher and you come out and say, as long as Walter Hamada is the head guy there, I'm not going to be in any DC movies. What do you think is going to happen? You think Warner Brothers is going to then fire Walter Hamada? They're not. So Ray Fisher kind of painted himself into a corner. And again, I'm not passing judgment on who was right. I wasn't there. I have no idea what went on between Ray Fisher and Walter Hamada. No idea at all. None of my business. It's none of my business. But I do know when you take your disputes public and you decide to fight it out in front of the public, you do run the danger of painting yourself into a corner. And now Ray Fisher has put himself in a position where he can't save face by appearing in a DCEU movie when he's publicly said, I'll never be in one of these movies as long as Walter Hamada is involved. Well, guess what? Walter Hamada is the head guy. He's the Kevin Feige, for lack of a better comparison, of the DCEU right now. And so you're never going to be there. So no, I don't think we're going to see Ben come back. It was really interesting too that Ben Affleck never participated in the, Ben Affleck and a couple of others never participated in the press tour and in the press promotion for this thing. I don't know why. I'm not going to speculate as to why. I just thought it was interesting. But no, I don't think we're ever going to see Ray Fisher back. But then again, we live in a world where Jamie Foxx is coming back as Electro. And if that can happen, anything can happen. So we'll see what happens. All right. Next up, K Major writes, John, here's my DCEU history. I love Man of Steel. Batman vs. Superman was meh. Aquaman and Shazam were refreshing. Wonder Woman was good. Let's forget about Wonder Woman 2. I agree. Justice League was god-awful. I still like Justice League theatrical version. Hated how they portrayed Batman. I agree. That was my one big problem with the theatrical version of Justice League, was the sudden change in tone of how they were handling Batman. Of that, I am in 100% agreement with you, Cade Major. 100% agreement with you. That always sat with me very wrong, especially coming out of Batman versus Superman, which in my opinion gave us the greatest on-screen iteration of Batman ever. And then they totally backtracked on that in the theatrical. And I was kind of hoping that Snyder, who directed Batman versus Superman, would have taken us back to that version of Batman. But he did a little bit, but not a lot. But anyway, I agree with you. That was a terrible thing they did to him in the theatrical version. Couldn't stand The Flash. Wonder Woman and Aquaman were there, and Cyborg Man and Superman. Oh, and by the way, you tipped in like $50 each time. Thank you, K Major, for supporting our channel on that level, man. We really appreciate that, dude. Anyway, and Superman didn't feel like Superman. I thought I'm gonna. While I completely agree with you about the Batman thing, I disagree with you about the Superman thing. I thought Superman did feel like Superman, but that's just me. All that said, I thoroughly enjoyed Zack's Justice League. Flash was a character. Cyborg had heart. Yeah, Cyborg had real heart. Batman felt like Batman. Again, he didn't quite feel like Batman to me from Batman versus Superman, but it was a little bit closer. All the hero shots felt earned and not forced. I'm sad to see this thread not explored further. My only gripe was that the score and soundtrack. Oh, dude, I'm so glad you brought up the soundtrack. We'll talk about that in a second. Was the score and the soundtrack. It was all over the place and too much slow motion. Well, that's a Zack Snyder thing. But man, I was glued to the screen. Every scene, Steppenwolf was done way better here as well. I will disagree with you a little bit on the score. I thought the score was quite good. I actually thought the score was quite good. Especially in that one scene where they're standing around the Batcave and they're all like, Flash is like, we're all thinking the same thing. I'm not going to be the one to say it. Like, let's resurrect Superman. But as they're having that conversation, before they ever mention Superman, you start to hear that awesome Hans Zimmer Man of Steel theme. And I'm like, oh, and your blood starts rushing. So I got to say, I really did like the score. I like the score and the way they used the score. But the soundtrack was a bloody mess. I did not like the choice. Now, thankfully, this wasn't like, I don't know. I can't think of a movie off the top of my head. This wasn't one of those movies that had like a new song playing every 5 minutes. There was only a couple of places in the movie, but every time they started playing a song, like not score, but they started playing a song, every single time I'm like, this does not work here. This doesn't work here. Now, granted, that's a nitpick. That was only a couple times and maybe 3 or 4 times in the whole movie. Maybe like once an hour. So it's no big deal. It's no big deal. But whereas I thought the score was really accentuating the moments of the film and heightening the drama and speaking to the emotions that are supposed to be coming off the screen, I thought the score was working very well. But the soundtrack choices, I thought at best were questionable. At worst, distracting, quite frankly. But again, they only take up a few moments in the movie. Not a big deal, but I see you're going there with that. And K Major, again, thank you, my friend, for supporting the channel on that level. Thanks for sharing your thoughts, and we really appreciate you, man. Thank you very, very much. All right, next up, we go to Queston Fisher. And Queston Fisher writes, I'm really curious to know, what did Warner Brothers hate about this movie? Thank you. What did Warner Brothers hate about this movie 3 years ago to have this movie be rewritten by Joss Whedon? Here's the thing. Whedon didn't even rewrite anything. It's the same fucking movie. You didn't actually change it. You didn't actually change it. I just don't, and I'm sitting there because I have been led to believe, and a lot of us had been led to believe for years, this narrative that, oh, they just really didn't like his movie, and so they had to go in this totally different direction. And I get it. They wanted it 2 hours. Why they wanted it exactly at 2 hours, I do not know. But they wanted it at 2 hours and blah, blah, blah. But you just basically made the theatrical version is basically the same movie. It's just shorter with a lot of the heart cut out of it, not nearly as much character depth, nowhere near the exposition on the context of the story. You just made it shorter. Why did you need another director? All the plot points are exactly the same. And we went through it earlier, but it's, Batman, because of that whole discussion that he had with the dinner bell's been rung, he's putting together a team. He goes, finds Aquaman. He goes, finds Flash. Diane meets with Cyborg. Cyborg, oh, I'm mad at my daddy. And, they do that. They find Flash. They put all that stuff together. The mother boxes happen, blah, blah, the Battle of Themyscira, the thing, Battle Under the Harbor thing. It's all the same plot points. It's all the same beats. Why the hell did we go through that drama 3.5 years ago? What was that all about? What was the point? You essentially just gave us the same movie, except cut in half. And I'm a little bit flat. And again, the only thing I'm left with right now is that this speaks to the absolute state of dysfunction that Warner Brothers was in while still under Kevin Tsujihara at the time that all this was going on. It's the only thing I got. I don't know what else to tell you. Except that this is yet another manifestation of the absolute dysfunction that was going on around Warner Brothers at the time. Because I was expecting... Now look, I knew that Zack Snyder's cut would not be a night and day completely different movie. I mean, we all knew that. But I'm watching, did you not feel it, especially in the first hour? Like, did you not feel it in the first hour of the movie? It's like, this is... with some minor differences here and there, this is the same movie. They changed some of the narrative twist. They fleshed it all out much better, and it made for a much better movie. But what the hell was Warner Brothers doing 3.5 years ago? That is the question that I have on my mind, absolutely. What did Warner Brothers hate so much about what Zack Snyder put together? Because if you really hated it that much, why did you just end up putting together a just worse version of the same movie? I don't understand what the hell they were thinking. Someday, I'm going to sit down with an executive of Warner Brothers. Someday. And that's going to be the first question. What the hell happened at that you ended up just putting out the same movie anyway, just a much worse version of it? How did that... I just don't get it. I don't get it. Anyway. Sorry, now that's twice I've ranted about it. Sorry, I'll back off. But yeah, is what it is, I suppose. Where are we at now? Jake C. writes, Crisis on Infinite Earths, a live action, have the Snyderverse be one of the infinite realities Barry runs into. It practically writes itself, I tell you. Yeah, maybe. You gotta remember, you're talking to a guy. I'm not a fan of multi-dimensional stuff, multiverse and infinite. I'm not a fan of all that stuff. To me, it's just it's a cheap storytelling gimmick that just means we have no consequences for anything that we do. So I'm personally not a fan of that. But the reality is, Jake, I'm also aware that there are a lot of people who do like that stuff. And so maybe your suggestion would fly with probably a lot of other people. I'm just one of the people that stuff doesn't appeal to me. I like more concrete stuff in my storytelling where there's actual consequences and ramifications instead of just saying, time travel, that'll fix it. Multiverse, that explains it. I mean, I'm just not a big fan of that, but I know I'm in the minority. And I concede and recognize that a lot of people really do love that. And maybe that would work. Maybe that would totally work for a lot of people. All right. Let's see. Next up. Yasmar Hidalgo writes, isn't it kind of weird that Aquaman brings the villagers fish to eat, considering he can talk to them? That's a conversation I would love to see. Yeah, but I mean, what do you think Atlanteans eat? Atlanteans eat the fishies, ladies and gentlemen. They probably eat a lot of plankton. I'm guessing maybe a lot of seaweed, but I'm guessing they eat a lot of fish. Anyway, next up. Alex Aro writes, hate is useless. All respect to Patty Jenkins. Zack Snyder portrays Wonder Woman on the highest level of badassness while retaining her softness. If you take Wonder Woman 84 out of the equation, I just think what Patty Jenkins did with Wonder Woman was a better accomplishment. But you also got to remember, you're only seeing little segments of Wonder Woman in Justice League. Like, she is sharing the majority of the screen time with Batman, with Cyborg, with Flash, with Aquaman, with everything going on with Steppenwolf and Darkseid. And Zack Snyder has the advantage here of just giving us little bits of Wonder Woman and make those little bits really badass. What Patty Jenkins had the responsibility of doing is giving us a full movie of Wonder Woman. And I thought she did a great job. But I agree with you. I thought the way Wonder Woman was used in this movie was very effective and done very well. But I think it's two different things. You're talking about one director only needing to do this character in certain places, whereas you're talking about the other director has to make a fully fleshed out, complete movie based around this character. And they're two different things. And I just really like what Patty Jenkins did with the one. Although that doesn't take anything away from what I thought Zack Snyder did with her in this movie. Not in the least. All right. Next up, Cowboys Stars 909 writes, and by the way, guys, I totally forgot to do this, but I will do it now. I am I'm going to shut off the super chat feature because I've only got like another 20 minutes left. And I already know I'm not going to be able to get through all the super chats that have already come in. So don't worry. We will answer every super chat that came in. We're just going to have to do a companion video of this later. So I'm going to turn off the super chats right now. So the super chats are now turned off, and we will continue to try to get through as many of the ones that you guys have sent in before we wrap up here today. All right. Cowboys Stars 909 writes, as Martha, the world needs you. Lois, no, you idiot. The world needs you. Go fight with the Justice League. LOL. Oh, yeah. Yeah. Again, Martian Manhunter. That's the thing. It's like, oh, isn't that great of Martian Manhunter to come at the end when the fight's already done, say, yeah, I think I'll help you guys out now. Really? Did you know we were just like fighting a big gaggle of parademons and Steppenwolf and the mother boxes and the end of the world? You didn't think maybe instead of going to have a little pep talk with Lois Lane that maybe you could have flown out and said, hey guys, just so you know, I'm here. I'm pretty strong. Maybe I can be useful. So not only did I think Martian Manhunter's appearance in this movie was kind of pointless, it actually just makes me a little mad at Martian Manhunter. It's like, you coward. You giant coward. Anyway. That's just me. But you're right. Yeah, maybe you should go fight with the Justice League, dude. Instead of sitting down to have tea with Lois Lane. Maybe you go help the Justice League. I don't know. There's that. All right. CJEFC for life writes in the live chat. It was his day off. Give him a break. That's right. It was his day off. It's totally his day off. All right. Next up, we got Matthias Peterson, who writes, as much as I love seeing Soups in the black suit, I kind of thought it would have been cooler with the blue suit in the epilogue, shirt ripped, but I loved it. No, I agree. Like, again, it didn't change anything. It's not like, oh, this movie would have been better if he was wearing blue and red. No. Not at all. It's fine. It doesn't matter what color the suit is. But yeah, there's just no reason for it to be black. Like, and you should have just put in a single line of dialogue just to explain this, uniform with our family crest represents when this is happening in our world. Even just 1 3-second line of dialogue totally would have given it narrative purpose. But instead it was just like, oh, look, everybody, Superman's wearing the black costume. Isn't that cool? And whatever. It was fine. It doesn't matter. It doesn't take anything away from it. It's just a minor nitpick, but I agree with you, Matthias. All right. The Jedi Brandon writes, I absolutely went nuts when Snyder recreated Superman's first flight from Man of Steel with the black suit and the Hans Zimmer theme. I'm not going to lie. While I loved a lot of Superman in this movie, recreating the first flight scene, I don't know. To me, it was just, we've already done this. The close-up of the fist on the ground, the rock starting to spin. It's like, haven't we already done this? And it's one of the great moments in DCEU, that first flight, Superman's first flight in Man of Steel, one of the great moments in the DCEU. Absolutely. Well, I don't know. It didn't do a lot. I'm glad it worked for you though, Jedi Brandon. For me, it was like, I didn't have a problem with it. Don't get me wrong. It's not like I was like, oh, this is stupid. No. It's just like, I just didn't get anything out of it because we've already been there, done that, but I'm glad it worked for you, man. I'm glad it worked for you. But every time you hear that score, it just makes my blood rush. Bum, bum. I just got, that's it. Like my heart just starts beating. It's too good. All right. The 8th, right. Superman. I'm not impressed. I'm questioning my sexuality. Dude, can I just say this? The funny thing about Henry Cavill, and everybody knows you can't see it right now, but I've got my giant Henry Cavill as Superman standee right over here who kind of watches over and protects the studio. But Henry Cavill, in that scene where they're back at the Kent farm and him and Lois first land and he's still shirtless, right? He has such a unique physique because his body isn't actually that thick. Like when you go from his back to his abs, his body isn't that thick, right? But his freaking pectorals, like, really come out and like are really, really sharply defined. It's a very unique shape that you don't see a lot. It's like, holy crap, dude. Eat a hamburger or something, man. Put some gravy on that turkey. Have some ice cream or something. I mean, to say Henry Cavill was in ridiculous shape was that. But yes, that moment when he's like, he just lets him hit him with the axe. He doesn't even block it. And he just says, I'm not impressed. It's like, oh my God, this is the Superman. It was too good. It was too good. All right. Next up, Michael Hamilton writes, the Snyder cut was so good. It's a shame that that Snyder won't be continuing it. But my one issue was the aspect ratio. Okay, I've seen a lot of discussion about the aspect ratio. And look, I'm not going to defend it. The 4:3 aspect ratio was a questionable decision. That said, after about 10 minutes into the movie, I would be lying to you if I told you I even noticed it anymore. I didn't even, after about 10 minutes, I didn't even notice it anymore. I don't like the fact that they did the 4:3 aspect ratio. I think it was a questionable decision. I don't think it was a particularly inspired decision to do 4:3 aspect ratio, but at the end of the day, did it really impact my viewing experience? No. It was a little weird at first, just because we're not used to that anymore. But honestly, after about 10 minutes, I'm like, okay, my brain just tuned into it and was like, okay, this is it. And I honestly, with the exception of maybe 2 or 3 moments in the film, did I really notice, oh yeah, the giant black bars on the side of the screen. But honestly, for the most part, it didn't impact me at all. But yeah, I don't know why he chose to do that. I can't defend the choice to do that. But did it detract from my enjoyment of the movie? I gotta say it didn't. It didn't detract from my enjoyment. So it was all right. It was a creative choice. It's fine. Darklock writes, Darklock63 writes, did not like 2017 Justice League. I really like the Snyder Justice League. I like them both. I prefer this one. I just, again, giving more breadth to the characters, more breadth to the story. It just, when you're able to do that, it just serves your movie so much. And I will argue, and I'll win the argument, that this is still essentially the exact same movie that came out in 2017, except for that extra time to give more depth to the characters, to give more depth to the story, to give more background, to give more development. Yeah, it's the same beat for beat. It's the same movie, but by giving it that extra room to breathe, as somebody put earlier, it really makes all the difference in the world. And it makes for a more engaging story and a more engaging movie. Again, the perfect example of that is the scene of Cyborg with the waitress. That one scene perfectly is the perfect example of, did that change the story of the movie? Nope, that didn't change the story of the movie one little bit. But it gave us insight into the character. And by giving us insight into the character, you create an additional bond between the screen and us as the audience, and it makes it more engaging. And when we are more engaged, we are having a better experience. And just all that benefit from just giving it a little bit more room to breathe. Okay, granted, they doubled the length. It wasn't just a little bit more room to breathe, but by just giving it a bit more room to breathe, it's the same movie. It's a different experience. Does that make sense? This is the same movie, but it's a different experience. And I think that scene of Cyborg and the waitress is the perfect example of that. And there are many other scenes in the movie that represent that as well, but I think that Cyborg and the waitress scene perfectly embodies that. But that's just kind of my take on it. Next up, Darklock writes, missed the theater experience, me too. The 4:3 aspect ratio was a minor distraction. At most, I would say it was a minor distraction for me. Like I said, first 10 minutes, yeah, I noticed it. It bothered me a bit. After 10 minutes, I was good to go. It was perfectly good to go after that. Joshua Howard writes, I'll say it, Warner Brothers should have left Zack Snyder alone and let him make Batman versus Superman. And this, the way he wanted, they screwed us out of an epic. Well, it's easy to say, it's easy for us to say, and I catch myself doing this all the time, what somebody else should have done with their money. It's easy for us to say, they should have done this, they should have done that. I'll be honest with you, everybody disagrees. I don't care. I think all the studies have proved Batman versus Superman, which was a little bit of a box office disappointment. It wasn't a flop. Some people try to call Batman versus Superman a flop. It was not a flop. Was it a little, did it underperform? Sure. It would have underperformed more if it was like an over 3-hour movie. It would have made less. And I think all the stats that they brought out about it kind of prove that out. Did I prefer the ultimate cut? Yes. Did I think it was a vast improvement? No, I didn't think it was a vast improvement. I already thought the theatrical version of it was very, very good. But anyway, that's just me. Listen, there is no way in hell any studio was going to let a 4-hour cut of a movie go theatrical. It just, you're just kidding yourself. And you also are really, really underestimating exactly how many people would look at that runtime and say pass. Like if you thought the Justice League theatrical version underperformed at the box office, you have no idea what a 4-hour cut of it would have done at the box office. It would have done worse. Like I know my own mom, if she sees something over 2.5 hours, pass. My brother-in-law, Ray, who does all of our graphics, loves it. If he sees something over like 2 hours and 20 minutes, pass. There are a lot of people like that. And so now, could he have gotten away with like a 3-hour and 15-minute cut? Maybe. And by the way, I think that would have made for a better movie. I think if this Zack Snyder Justice League was like 3 hours and 20, 3 hours and 30, I think it would have been even better. It would have a much better pace, cut out a bunch of the bloat, all killer, no filler, all that kind of stuff. But maybe they would have let him get away with like a 3-hour and 15-minute. But all I'm saying is this, no studio, not Sony, not Paramount, not Disney, not whatever, would ever have let him release a 4-hour cut of the movie. There's no way. Never would have happened. Never would have happened. Because it would have hurt the movie a lot financially. It would have hurt the movie a lot. So, I mean, yeah, it's all great and romantic to say for us to sit back. And believe me, I'm not pointing you out, Jack, because I do this too. I am totally guilty of this. I totally am. But it is all easy for us to sit back and say, when it's not our money and it's not our company and it's not our bankruptcy and it's not our disaster, to say, oh, they should have done this. That's easy for us to say. It wasn't our money. It wasn't our money. But I mean, these are all decisions that we're going like way over my pay grade, All right, next up. I mean, somebody's pointing it out in the live chat, like Highly Flavors also pointing out. It's like, hell, even people at home were saying 4 hours. Like, even my wife was like, 4 hours? I'm like, yeah, honey. Like, I'll watch it another time. It's like, okay. She was like, I'll watch it another time. Like, and that's for people at home. When you can pause it and come back to it later. Yeah, in the theaters, it would have been no good. It would not have worked theatrically. But anyway, there's that. All right, Frederick Nicholas Jr. writes, I think the Snyder Cut was good. The only thing I thought the original post-credit scene with Lex Luthor was better. I gotta disagree. I thought the post-credit scene with the change in the dialogue was a little bit better in this one. Like, again, it's the same scene. Deathstroke shows up on the boat, walks up the steps, comes on in, but they just changed the dialogue a bit. Now he's saying, I got something I need you to do. I'm going to give you the name of the Batman. His name's Bruce Wayne. Okay, let's celebrate, right? I just thought it made it a more interesting scene, but the other one worked better for you. That's all good. I just preferred the one in the Snyder cut. All right, next up, Black Bono Lala writes, during and after watching Snyder Cut, all I could say was, why, Warner Brothers? Too busy chasing MCU, and you have this on your hand. Oh, well, we just explained it. They were never, ever would have released a four. Look, I know nobody wants to, I'll say the unpopular thing. A 4-hour cut of Justice League would have completely flopped. It just would have completely flopped. Do not underestimate the average user, the average moviegoer who looks at 3-hour movies and go, oh, that's a bit long. 3 hours is a bit long. It's not that it's impossible, but look, Zack Snyder's Justice League is not Lord of the Rings. All right. It's not an all-time great movie. It's not going to be a movie that wins 11 Academy Awards. It's not one that we're still going to be talking about for generations after it's done. So yes, for Lord of the Rings, it worked. But even Lord of the Rings, I think the length of those movies hampered it. I think it could have made even more money had they not been that long. You try to put out a movie that's like 4 hours long when a big chunk of the movie-going audience already doesn't like Zack Snyder's DCEU movies. That's the other thing you got to remember. A lot of the audience, I don't know why, but a lot of the audience do not like Man of Steel. I'll never understand why, but it's the truth. A lot of the audience don't like Man of Steel. That's confounding to me, but it is what it is. And a lot of the audience don't like Batman versus Superman. I mean, you and I may, but a lot of the audience do. Now you compound that by saying we're going to put out a 4-hour version, totally would have flopped. It completely would have flopped. And I don't think we can underestimate that. So anyway, this is kind of my take on that. All right, Magic K. But again, it didn't need to be the drama that they made it to be. You didn't need to remove Zack Snyder from it. You just wanted the same movie, just a shorter version of it that's not as good. Okay, then just get an editor to edit it down to 2 hours. It still wouldn't have been as good, but I mean, again, I'm not going to rant on it for a third time. Sorry, guys. I get easily distracted. All right, Magic K writes, people loathe some of the scenes the past 3 years and thought they were shot by Whedon, but last night they realized that it was shot by Zack. Yeah, that's true. I think, look, you guys all saw the same things I did. There was a lot of talk online about this movie is 95% different from this. No, it really wasn't. And you know what? Zack Snyder was very upfront. I found what Zack Snyder said about it was completely accurate. Zack Snyder said before this movie was released that it's got 2.5 hours of footage that hadn't been in there before. Well, if you do the math, if this movie's 4 hours long and he's saying 2.5 hours of it is unseen, that means 1.5 hours of it was in the original theatrical version. And he was right. There's probably a good 1.5 hours of it was just in the original version. And you are right about that, Magic K. There are a number of scenes that people complained about and blamed it on Whedon, but then last night they found out, oh, I guess those were Zack Snyder's shots. Now, I liked them when they were in the theatrical version, and I still like them when they're in the Zack Snyder. But yeah, there were some people that I think had a very interesting awakening when they realized that some of the stuff that they were crapping on, thinking it was Whedon's fault, were actually scenes that Zack Snyder had actually done. And like, to me, it doesn't matter because I like them anyway. I liked them in that version. I like them in this version. So me, I don't care. But I think you're right. There were some people that had kind of an unfortunate awakening, realizing that this wasn't going to be a 95% different movie than the theatrical version. It just wasn't. A lot of the theatrical version was Zack Snyder shot stuff. And it worked for me there. It works for me here. So that's just me. All right, next up. Magic K also writes, TC Batman. I don't know what TC means. I called Alfred to bring Lois here. Oh, in the theatrical cut. I called Alfred to bring Lois here to calm Superman down. Snyder cut. Batman, nah, I can handle Superman with him laser beaming me. I agree. that was look, the Snyder cut is a better version than the theatrical cut, but there are moments in the theatrical cut that were better than the Snyder cut. And the whole idea of they just so happened to be lucky that Lois Lane just happened to be walking by when Superman was brought back to life and was having this battle with the rest of the Justice League. And it just so happened that Lois Lane, just by chance and coincidence, happened to be strolling by when that was going on. To me, a much better storytelling hook of that is that Batman, being the master strategist, like in the theatrical cut, he gets a hold of Alfred and says, it's time to bring in the big guns. And of course, we later found out bringing the big guns meant bringing in Lois Lane. That he had calculated this. He had prepared for this. He had planned for this. He knew there was a possibility that when they wake Superman up, who knows how disoriented he's going to be? Who knows? We may need Lois Lane there. Don't have her there right away just in case it's dangerous. Only bring her out if it's an absolute necessity. To me, that was a part of the movie that actually worked better in the theatrical than it did in the Snyder cut. Rather than, whoo! It's a good thing Lois Lane was walking by or Superman was about to kill Batman, right? It's just, wow, we sure are lucky. We sure are lucky. Anyway, and let's move on here. Black Rice writes, only got about 10 minutes left here, guys. Black Rice writes, as somebody who only likes Man of Steel and dislikes Batman versus Superman, after watching Zack Snyder's Justice League, I hope he gets to complete his vision 10 times better than the original. I disagree with that. To me, it is not twice as good. It's better. It is better. This is an improved version of the movie. Zack Snyder took that extra time and totally fleshed it out and made it, 10 times better? No, I disagree with that. I don't think it is. I think that is a massive, massive hyperbole. But hey, it's all subjective. If that's what it was to you, then that's what it was to you. Personally, I don't agree. But we do agree that it was an improvement. It was definitely an improvement. All right, next up. Caleb Crane writes, Cyborg's first flight scene was dope. Big Man of Steel vibes. Yeah, his first flight scene was pretty cool. I mean, there's a lot. Again, and I kind of get now why we get a little bit more context about why Ray Fisher has been so salty. It's Justice League was kind of a Cyborg movie. And then he just kind of became another one of the side characters on the level of Flash. And yeah, I get it. That probably would have pissed a lot of people off. I get it. It puts a little bit more of that into context for me. But no, there was a lot of scenes. Again, to me, that waitress scene, I know I've referenced it like 4 times already tonight, but that waitress scene was so well done and so moving and so special. The flight scene was great. The cemetery part was great. They did so much more with that character because they had the time to give the character depth, and that makes a world of difference. It absolutely makes a world of difference. All right. Next up, we've got Black Rice, who writes, I like Joss, but it feels like his ego was all over the original version. How could anyone watch that version and think it was better than Snyder's? Well, there are people who do. But here's the thing, what everybody forgets. And by the way, let me address this. I once said, and I was very, very clear about what I meant. There is this misconception out there that, Zack Snyder either left or was removed, whatever semantics you want to use, from Justice League. And Warner Brothers went out and said, oh, boy, we need somebody to finish it. Hey, Joss Whedon, will you finish this? And Joss Whedon said, yes, but only if I get to do all of these things. And Warner Brothers said, okay, Josh, you go and do that. That's not what happened. They literally went to Whedon and say, look, we saw this. We don't like it. You've got to change, make it different, cut it in half, cut this movie down in half, make a bunch of changes. Oh, and by the way, we're not changing the release date. You still have to come in at the exact same time that the movie was before. go. And what I said before is, when you understand that, I said Joss Whedon saved Justice League. Now, a bunch of people took, when I said that they took that me saying that, oh, that Joss Whedon saved it from Zack Snyder. I'm like, no, that's not what I said. I said, when you look at the circumstances, any director put in that position saying, we just parted with the director for whatever reason. This thing's 4 hours long. We want it 2 hours long. We don't like this and we don't like this. You need to change it. Make this thing 2 hours long, and we're not changing the release date. There are very, very few directors. The fact that Joss Whedon was able to bring that movie home and deliver a feature film, which once again, remember, got higher critic ratings and higher audience ratings than Batman vs. Superman did. Don't shoot the messenger. I'm just telling you what the numbers were. The fact that any director was able to step in under those ridiculous circumstances and still deliver a movie is pretty remarkable, understanding the circumstances. And so when I said Joss Whedon saved Justice League, I don't mean he saved it from Zack Snyder. I mean, that thing was not going to make it. After Snyder had gone and all that kind of stuff, and they were like, do this, and you've only got this amount of time. We're not changing the release date. Because again, Walter Hamada needed to get his bonus. Idiot. It is a remarkable feat. It's a remarkable feat that he got that movie done and that he got that movie made. That said, I don't know if any other director could have stepped into those circumstances and done any better of a job. I don't know that any other director could have stepped in with only X amount of time to go, had to make all these changes and cut the movie in half, and that they would have been able to deliver. I don't know that a lot of directors could have done it. And I think any other director that could have done it, you know, whether it's a Spielberg or a Tarantino or a Scorsese, they definitely wouldn't have done it. They wouldn't have wanted to do it. They never would have agreed to it. Right? So they would have wanted creative control, and they would have wanted this, and they would have wanted that, and understandably so, and rightfully so. But it was, having now seen Zack Snyder's Justice League, and now you look back at that scenario and you realize it was an impossible situation, and it didn't need to be an impossible situation. That did not need to be as ridiculous of a situation as it was. Right from the beginning, we knew if you guys had just extended the deadline, the release date, they probably could have done a lot better. But now that we see that it was still basically the same story beats, you didn't even need to bring in another director. All you needed was an editor to edit down to 2.5 hours. And whatever little minor things you want to change, just leave it the way Zack had it. I don't know. Again, I think someday there's a documentary to be made. Not that Warner Brothers would ever agree to let it be made, but I would give a lot of money, brothers and sisters. I would give a lot of money to watch a true expose documentary, not by some fans who just work on their own stupid bias speculation, but I mean an actual inside Warner Brothers documentary about everything that went on and what led to certain decisions and whatnot, because it is baffling. It's absolutely baffling. Let's see. Santez Henderson writes, did you miss the I don't not like you scene? Be honest, really enjoyed this version of the movie. Glad Snyder got to do this. Congrats to the fans. Oh, dude, listen, I like the original theatrical Justice League. Not as much as this one, but I like the original theatrical Justice League. I never liked that line. Remember we were talking a little bit earlier about the one big problem I always had with the theatrical version of Justice League is how much they changed Batman from Batman versus Superman. It turns out it was still changed even in this version. But one of the lines that truly highlights the difference between Batman versus Superman Batman and Justice League Batman was, I thought you didn't like me. I don't not like you. Oh, it's like, oh my God. Oh my God, that was bad. And listen, I like that movie, but that line was bloody, bloody awful. Bloody awful. I hated that line so much. So no, my friend, while I did miss the just save one line, I did miss that. While I did miss the you won't let me live, you won't let me die, or the world needs you, but does the world need you? There are lines from the original theatrical cut that I did miss. I don't not like you is not one of those lines, Santes. That is not one of the lines that I missed at all. So glad that line was gone. All right, next up, Steve Cunnin writes, John, I loved it. The man has a vision, looked gorgeous, and loved all the performances. Fisher was amazing. That first flight scene with the black suit and the shot pans down over the black cape. Wow. I mean, listen, one of the things you can never take away. Now, I am personally a Zack Snyder fan. I've liked every single one of his movies except for Sucker Punch. But no director has movies that I like. Well, I like every single Christopher Nolan movie. But my favorite filmmaker of all time, Steven Spielberg, he's got a movie I don't like. The only movie of Zack Snyder's I've ever not liked was Sucker Punch. I've liked every other one of his movies. But to people who don't like his movies, and he's very stylized, he's not for everybody, that's fine. But even people who don't like Zack Snyder's movies, you got to agree and acknowledge this guy can visually tell a story. Like the visuals, even in that movie of his I don't like, Sucker Punch, visually, that movie is just freaking gorgeous. That movie is gorgeous. And Zack has a real ability to leverage his visuals to help tell his story. Sometimes the story isn't always the best, but you cannot knock this guy's visual style. His visual style is great, and that was on full display in the Justice League Snyder Cut for sure, Steph. All right, next up. Max Gomez writes, the fight on Themyscira was just amazing. Yeah, I mean, I already liked the fight on Themyscira. I thought the fight on Themyscira in the original version was good. This was better. And they took something that was already good, they made it better with just a few changes, a few little additions here and there, and it elevated that experience. By the way, DJ sent in a super chat badge in the live chat. Thank you, DJ. Appreciate that, man. Michael Myers just sent in a super chat to be supportive. Thank you, Michael Myers. Russell Amador writes, for Darkseid. Thank you. And again, the addition of Darkseid gave so much more dimension just to the story. Just knowing that Darkseid was there, it added a whole new dimension to the story that worked really well. NPE94 writes, I was surprised at how much I liked it. Do you think there is a plausible chance of a sequel on HBO Max? No. What does it mean for Reeves's Batman? It means nothing for Reeves's Batman. They already kind of explained that Reeves's Batman is in its own kind of universe, so it means nothing for Matt Reeves's Batman. Do I personally, as a spectator who is not connected inside Warner Brothers, I do not walk the halls of Warner Brothers. I got some friends there, but I do not walk inside the halls of Warner Brothers. Do I think right now that there is a truly plausible chance that they will do a sequel? No, I don't. Do I think it's possible? Yes. But I think it's a very, very thin possibility. Again, all I can go by is what did Zack Snyder say and what did Warner Brothers say? And they've both said, this is it. This is it. So do I think there is a truly plausible chance that we get a sequel? No, but I don't know that. That's just me guessing. That's just me looking. And all I have to go on is what Zack Snyder and what Warner Brothers said. And maybe they change their minds in the future. I don't know, but it doesn't look like it right now. But hey, we'll see what happens moving forward. All right. Matthew Roberts writes, the Amazon scene was worth it by itself. We have no fear. It was a great line, man. Again, great example. It's the exact same scene doing the exact same thing narratively. They just elevated it. and it changed the experience. And that was a great example of that, Matthew. Stephen Redeker writes, I doubt they'll do it, but release the Snyder Cut. Like what, another one? Next up, Wiz R74 writes, I need the Snyder Cut on 4K Blu-ray ASAP. I think I heard that they are going to put it out on physical media. I mean, let's face it. Sorry. One drop of my drink just went down the wrong pipe, and I'm like fighting with it ever since. But let's be honest here. They have got to come up with some ways to recoup that $70 million they spent on it. Now there are rumors. I don't know if these are true or not, but there has been rumbling that Greenblatt, the guy who was the chairman of Warner Media, the guy who greenlit spending $70 million to complete the Snyder Cut, he ain't the chairman of Warner Media anymore. And there are whispers and rumors that he got asked to step aside because he greenlit spending $70 million on that. So look, whether that's true or not, I have no idea. But they do got to figure out some way to recoup that $70 million. That is a lot of money for a movie you already spent a lot of money on. You know what I mean? So they're going to have, selling a 4K Blu-ray, all that kind of stuff. We'll see what I'll do. But I think I did hear that they are going to put out, now I could be wrong. Maybe I'm not remembering it right, but I thought I heard them say that they are going to put it out on physical media. Now, whether that's going to be widely available or not, I have no idea. I don't care about physical media, so I didn't really pay close attention to it. But if you look into it, it might be there. So, Wiz, you just may get your wish, my friend. All right, last question I'm going to take, guys, and then the rest we'll have to address in a companion video in the next day or two. Jose Linares writes, when Cyborg failed and boxes were combined, did everyone die? Barry rewound time, and you can see everyone reconstructing, including Superman, right? Yes, that's what I saw. Now, maybe I didn't see it right. Maybe I'm not remembering it right. But what I saw, Jose, is exactly what you're saying. As the blast from the mother box, the Unity, was spreading out, it vaporized, it deconstructed everybody, including Superman. And the only reason it didn't get Flash was because he was already so far, he was in the Speed Force and he was already so far outside of the center. So he was able to kick it in, go faster than the speed of light, break the rule, and pull a Galaxy Quest. He was like, and I wish he had mentioned Galaxy Quest. I would have stood up and cheered if we saw Barry talking to himself, got to go faster than the speed of light, got to break the rule, got to pull a Galaxy Quest. If he had done that, kind of like how Spider-Man goes, remember that really old movie, Empire Strikes Back, and he references what they're going to do? If Barry had done that, I would have lost my mind. I would have thought that would have been so perfect, because they totally did do the ending of Galaxy Quest. That was exactly the ending of Galaxy Quest. But I wish he would have referenced it. I think that would have been hilarious. All right, guys, listen. For everybody else, from Jake Rowan, MPE94, Drake Ripley, Stephen Redeker, do not worry. In the next couple, maybe not tomorrow. I can't tomorrow because I'm doing the Falcon and Winter Soldier spoiler discussion. But Saturday, I will finish up with all of your live questions. I will get those all taken care of, and you will see our part 2 of our open spoiler discussion of the Zack Snyder spoiler discussion up on the site on Saturday. Go and keep your eyes open for it there. All right, guys. With all that down, that'll do it for this spoiler discussion of the Zack Snyder Justice League. I hope that you guys enjoyed hanging out here chatting with it. I've had fun chatting with you guys. Thank you for spending some of your evening here. I know a lot of people didn't want me to do this spoiler discussion today because it is rather early, and I acknowledge that, but I had no choice because I couldn't do it on the weekend, and and tomorrow I've got to do Falcon and Winter Soldier, so it just was what it was. But anyway, guys, thank you guys for taking time out to be here today. I really appreciate it. Special thank you to all you guys who sent in the comments, questions, and observations about Zack Snyder's Justice League. I appreciate it very much. Tomorrow, The John Campea Show, me and Erin Cummings, who is here right now. She's actually, I think her and her husband Tom just arrived a few minutes ago. They're crashing the night here with us. And then in the morning, me and Erin are going to do the John Campea Show. And then in the evening, we've booked a private movie theater at an AMC theater so we can go, us and about 10 other friends. We're going to go and watch Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade. I'm very, very excited about that. Okay, guys, that'll do it for me. Remember, do the 4 main things, my friends. Stay smart, stay safe, take care of yourselves, and please take care of the people around you. That'll do it for me, guys. My name's John Campea, and until next time, everybody, bye-bye.